Thank you for watching. I'm John Razimus, and this is Signs of Spirit Activity. I have here an official MGIC book here. Let's open it up and see what's inside. None other than the Signs of Spirit Activity. So let's just grab one of these Signs of Spirit Activity papers and let's read through the list and see the 18 signs of spirit activity. Are there more signs of spirit activity than this? Most definitely. Can they be broken down into types and groups? And can multiple signs be bundled together into a single sign? Most definitely. But this is just me thinking about the different signs of spirit activity for a while and breaking them into 18 different signs of spirit activity. And some of these are not signs of spirit activity at all, if seen from a different perspective. But they most definitely are when you have further confirmations. Independently, one of these may just be a coincidence. Independently, one of these may just be nature, happenstance, synchronicity, serendipity, whatever the case. But if you have a number of these things happening, there's a good chance spirit activity is taking place. I'm very familiar with spirit activity. Let's start with number one, and these aren't in any particular order. Number one is creaking. Creaks on any surface that can creak, especially in corners of rooms. This is one of the first things I noticed in the haunted room that I rented in the year 2011. Every surface in the room creaked on a level of an intelligent entity sitting on that object, not just randomly. There's definitely a presence in the room to the point where I even heard footsteps, and footsteps are down here on the list. Creaks. There's a video by an occultist who practices the ancient Solomon rites of the Key of Solomon, and this guy is pretty famous. He made the rites of his secret order public. I believe someone stole his rites, or maybe someone joined his order and then left his order and said they're going to expose his order. And instead of allowing them to expose it, he made public videos exposing it himself. They weren't secrets, they were just extremely obscure ceremonial occult rites of the Key of Solomon, the Goetia, these different ancient codexes of old, summoning 72 demons. Kind of scary stuff, kind of dark stuff. But you also summon angels, supposedly. And this guy is just given what looks like a informative video. Here's how we do it. And he doesn't actually do it per se. He just shows you the general gist of the different ceremonies. Here's a wax seal. Here's how you melt the wax seals with the candles, with the smoke, with this and that. Here's the black mirror. Here's the candles. You got to be in a dimly lit room. You summon this angel to combat this demon, so on and so forth. And during the video, which is available on YouTube, I'm going to show you just the name and a screenshot of the video in question. He's a very famous occultist. He's legitimate. He has books that I have in my library as well, actual magical texts, grimoires. And during his description of talking about angels and demons and the ceremonies, I'm hearing many, many creaks in his video. He's like, so this is how you... And I'm hearing legitimate spirit creaks in the background of his video, and he doesn't even flinch or acknowledge them, which I found interesting, but they confirmed to me that he most definitely was dealing with spirits on a literal level.
Well, the only way you're going to know for certain is to look into the dark mirror yourself. But I warn you, unless you take Solomon's magic very seriously, you should have nothing to do with these experiments. This ancient art is not a party game or a Halloween prank. There is no place in the magic circle for the dabbler or the thrill seeker. Every aspect of this system, spiritual, psychological, and technical, must be thoroughly understood before these experiments are undertaken. Like knights of olden times, magicians must be trained, armed, and armored before they go on a quest into the spirit realm. Times.
Because spirit creaking can be heard throughout his videos. It's pretty scary stuff. 2. Knocking, rapping, tapping, as noted by spiritists. This phenomena continues to this day. I have to say one of the earliest contacts I've ever experienced of a spirit contacting me out of the blue was when I was at the end of an open house, and my mom was a real estate agent, and she asked me to help her close up the place, turn off all the lights. That's it. It was a pretty big house. It had 2 wings, and my mom turned off the lights of the right wing, and I turned off all the lights in the left wing. So I turned off, I would say, probably 10 to 15 light switches. Then I used the restroom, and I heard knocks coming from a closet. Now this bathroom was open to a bedroom, which was open to like a hallway, which was open to another bedroom. So all the way down from this bathroom, I could see a closet in the very far left side of the house. And these knocks I was hearing. I was just using the restroom, minding my own business, and I started to hear. Sounded kind of like that. It sounded like a human knuckle hitting some wood. But then as I heard it, I was thinking, is this a woodpecker? So I wasn't sure what it was, but I heard it coming from inside the closet itself. Specifically, it was coming from the lower inside portion of this closet. I was kind of scared. But I opened up the closet, and it was empty, nothing there. And the second I opened it up, the knocks stopped. I estimate it knocked about 30 times, somewhere around there. And I was convinced maybe a bird was knocking on something, or maybe a tree limb was hitting the house and it was windy, or maybe there was a weird shutter outside hitting the house. So I immediately went outside. And there was no shutters, no trees. There was a perfectly, extremely shortly trimmed side yard of grass. So trimmed that it was like a golf course. And there was nothing there. It was perfectly immaculate. The side was totally spackle, and a ways down was a window, but that was far down. So there was nothing in this area, nothing that could have created that knocking sound. When I went outside to check if the side of the house had anything that could have made that knocking sound, which there was nothing, I immediately came back inside, and all of the light switches were turned on the left side of the house, which I specifically by hand turned every single one of them off. Because the second I got back into the house, my mom asked me, hey, how come you didn't turn off the lights? I asked you to turn off the lights. I turned them all off on the right side. How come you didn't turn them off? And I was like, I did turn them off. I turned all of them off. She's like, they're all on. Every single one of them is on. And there wasn't a master switch that turned them all off or anything like that. I looked for a master switch because I assumed some type of master switch was flipped, which just reversed everything that I did, but no. While I was outside looking for the source of this spirit knocking, the spirit actually turned on all of the lights that I just turned off. Nixie wants you to hear this story. That's why I believe it was haunted. It was a haunted house. That's probably why it was for sale. So lights turning back on after you turn them off is actually very common with hauntings. I've heard it in many stories. Someone turns off the light, the spirit turns it back on, and vice versa. But it's usually the spirit turning it on, which is a little unusual. You think a spirit would turn the lights off, but spirits that cooperate with the residents, sometimes the residents say, please turn that off, please keep that off. I turned it off, please keep it off. And the spirits have turned off lights when they're cooperating. But I've heard many a times spirits do turn lights back on after they have been turned off. So that's another reason I believe the knocking was spirit related, because the lights all turned back on and I had to flip all 10 to 15 of these switches off. It was unusual. Both me and my mom said that maybe this place is haunted. It's a little weird, but I didn't think too much of it. And I hadn't had many spirit encounters for many years after this period of time. But I continue on this list of signs of spirit activity. Only upon looking back years and years do I realize it was a spirit. It was genuine, authentic spirit activity. It was a poltergeist knocking in a closet. Spirits love closets. They hang out in closets. I know it is reminiscent of the boogeyman, and it's probably where the boogeyman fairy tales originate. There are many that have had first-hand contact with spirits which have repeated the "they like closets" information. Earthquake Kelly is one of them. Earthquake Kelly says he was raised with someone who practiced voodoo, and he was expected to become a voodoo priest, and he was just a kid. He didn't know what voodoo was. He wasn't into it. He said in his closet, he was approached by a spirit with a green face, which said he would give him riches and fame if he just continued in the tradition of a voodoo priest. And he's like, this is scary stuff. This doesn't feel right. I decline. And the spirit promised him riches and fame and anything he wanted. So one of those too good to be true scenarios, but it was specifically in his closet that he firsthand contacted the spirit. In the year 2010, one of my biggest, and I should put closets in here, but you get the gist, all right? As you can see there, I can go off on a million tangents, but in the year 2010, the most phenomenal, not in a good way, but in a bad way, I would say, spirit contact experiences I've ever had in my life was a spirit manifesting in a closet on top of a box, cardboard box, in my closet. The door was open. And so they definitely do like closets. They like mirrors. They like corners of rooms. But different signs of spirit activity. Cold air, temperature drops, mysterious wind, breeze. I experience that occasionally, here and there. Some people experience it more than others. I believe it's because those that do experience it more than others, perhaps it's one of the few ways they can detect spirit activity. Because they can't detect it in other ways, they wait for that breeze. I personally detect it on many different levels. On a spiritual level, I can feel the vibe of a spirit in a room. I can feel the vibe of a spirit near me. I can feel the energy, electricity, and almost voltage of a spirit when it walks through me. I don't believe this is common and normal among every person, but I do believe that being able to feel cold wind and air and temperature drops is something every human can relate to and experience. And so that is one of the more common ways mortals can tell if there's a spirit there. Now, it doesn't mean there's a spirit there. You could literally be in some type of a wind vortex. Even moving my hand, I'm feeling cold wind on my face. So occasionally there's going to be a cold breeze because of some air vent, open door, slightly open, whatever the case. Not every breeze is going to be a spirit, but some are. And spirits do have the ability to manifest wind, breeze, and drops in temperature. Number 4, the feeling of wind blowing or moving, walking through your body, chest, neck. So I already talked about that a little bit, but some people feel it on the neck. Very common. Like the movie The Sixth Sense, you know that feeling of tingling on your neck? That's them. It's not always them, okay? That can literally be you go outside and it's cold and your body notices the cold and it wants to warm you up, and you can have a similar sensation with literally just walking into a snowy area after being in a warm house. So there are ways that it can be recreated to an extent, but those that are in tune spiritually can tell the difference between a temperature drop and a spirit walking the freak through your freaking body. I've seen many ghost hunting shows, and some of the ghost hunters occasionally experience what I experience on a regular basis. On to number 5, footsteps, shuffling, rustling sounds. Footsteps on creaky floorboards. It's very obvious. You know, there's a book I read, The Mysteries and Magic of Tibet, and in that book it says spirits are short and small, and all spirits are short and all spirits are small. Basically exactly repeating what people describe with alien abductions, that the aliens are always this tall. Well, in that book, it says spirits are all this tall. So that's kind of unusual, but it coincides and is very synchronistic. And I personally believe if you've been visited by a gray alien in your dreams or out of your dreams, it's not always extraterrestrial. And not only is it not always extraterrestrial, it could be your imagination. It could be, maybe it took something that induced it. But if it's an authentic paranormal phenomena, it's always a spirit, 100% of the time. Look at the spirit Aleister Crowley drew prior to any of this pop culture of what the gray aliens looked like. Lamb, his little guardian angel friend, looks exactly like a gray alien. Footsteps, shuffling, rustling sounds. I heard footsteps on a Walmart bag that I had on my floor. This is back when Walmart had the super flimsy plastic bags. Now, at least here where I live, they have pretty thick, sturdy 10-cent bags. But back then, they were as flimsy and thin as a plastic bag could possibly be. And it just made a plastic bag footstep sound, and I heard it. And ever since I heard that in my 2011 room, I picked up every single piece of garbage. Not that my room was messy. I just had maybe a plastic bag here, maybe a bottle of water there, maybe an empty box there. Whatever I had, I made sure nothing that could easily be moved and manipulated and shifted was anywhere in my room. I tried to make it as poltergeist-proof as possible, which isn't very possible because they're going to eventually sit and creak and stand and kick and push things. Even if things aren't easy to move, they'll make their presence known. Shuffling, rustling. People have repeated this time and time again. Watch, the different ghost story TV shows. Not all of them are fake, okay? Not all of them are exaggerated. Celebrity ghost encounters, I don't think those people are going to be making up stories to help their career. If anything, those stories hurt those celebrities' careers. Hollywood doesn't reward anyone for telling a ghost story. Many of the ghost stories involve, I heard a rustling, a shuffling. And that's just one of the ways people describe there's a presence in the room. I heard tiny footsteps on dry grass at the grist mill. And I recorded it, and you heard it if you watched that video. I'm going to turn on my head cam. All right, let's see. Make sure I do it right. Hey! I'm busy turning on my camera. Hold up. The scene was very scary, very frightening. It was not fun. It was over the top unusual. There was a magic in the air. The normal person would pack their bags and run from something like this. But I was here to investigate ghosts, specifically. I drove over 1,000 miles to be here, and that dedication caused me to keep the camera focused and steady on the direction of the sound. I didn't notice this until after watching this footage 30 times, but the spirit actually walked up to me, grabbed my camera, and shook my camera up and down. Because the synchronization of the sound of the grass matches exactly with the camera moving up and down. I was on a balded dirt area without much grass. I wasn't making any noise with the grass. I wasn't touching any grass. Every grass sound you hear was 100% from the spirit. That video has people saying, hey, it's fake or whatever, edited or something. It's not fake, it's not edited. That was legitimately a spirit entity walking with almost chicken feet. It had a very animalistic footstep sound to it, but he was legitimately a spirit. There were 0 animals, and I was alone, and it was a haunted location. A poltergeist entity not only manifested feet and walked in the grass, but it threw a rock at the building to make maximum echo. Immediately after me asking, can you make your presence known? Can you make your presence known? 6, disembodied voices, sounds, music, non-intelligible. That's if you can't understand what it's saying. Very often, more common than not, it sounds like it's in the next room. You can't quite make it out. That could be because of the dimensional separation. I think it's pretty obvious to ghost investigators that when 2 or 3 spirits are talking behind your back, they're having full-blown regular conversations in full-blown regular tones of voice. And if you pick up any of that conversation, you're lucky. They're going to assume and expect you can't hear any of that. But if you have like a ghost box or something that can project their voice in some way or another, they might be interested. They might be like, wow, this guy can hear something. And they're going to feed whatever information they want you to hear. Or maybe they're saying a lot and only a few words get through. Whatever the case, not intelligible is a lot more rare than intelligible. So 7 is disembodied voices, sounds, music, intelligible. Words are understood. Music is identifiable. Most definitely, there are many different states of mind and illnesses of the mind that can hear voices. So not everything on this list can be seen only in one way. Now, if you have it recorded on a recording, here it is, doctor. You know, I would be curious what the doctor would say at that point. Are you comfortable at night? We have the famous doll, the most haunted doll in the world. Zach Bagans offered $1 million to buy it. Annabelle. So the Annabelle doll, housed in Ed and Lorraine Warren's Haunted Museum. Ed Warren was interviewed by Art Bell, and I listened to this interview live. And Ed Warren said, both Ed and Lorraine were on the show at the time, and Art asked Ed, what's the most frightening thing you've ever experienced while investigating for ghosts? Ed said, one time, we're in this extremely haunted location. I think it was a haunted house. And Ed said a lady screamed at the top of her lungs to him, like some witch. And there was no one there. No one was there. He heard a lady like a few feet away from his face yell as loud as any person could possibly yell. And he was a spirit. That would freak me out, okay? That would freak me out big time. I'm sure Lorraine was right there next to him. They always went together. They were a tag team of professional spirit investigation of renowned legend. We all know about Ed and Lorraine Warren. And they coined the term EVP. They went to graveyards and would play a recorder. How's it going? And they didn't always hear it, so they would play it back. It's going pretty good. The thing about communication is it's very hard to get concrete answers. I have a theory about spirit contact. I personally believe there is a law in the universe that prevents spirits from having full-blown communication with mortals on a level where that mortal could use that information for their own personal gain. Like, what are the winning lottery numbers? Where is a huge buried treasure with $1 billion worth of gold? Stuff like that. If it can't benefit the person, other than on a TV show for entertainment reasons, I suppose, spirits can communicate a few words here and there. Now, Gary Galka, famous, amazing inventor of many ghost investigation equipment that I own, he recently tweeted. He said his personal opinion is spirits are very quick. They're very intelligent. They assess very quickly. They're very immediate in assessing whether this person can hear them well, can communicate with them well. If they can't, then they don't waste time on that human and they kind of take off, which is why there's only a few sporadic comments and then they're gone. That's an interesting theory. It's interesting. It definitely is different, completely different from the universe preventing full-blown communication theory. But I can see that being a great possibility. I do think spirits are on a level where they're looking down from the fifth dimension or above. And not that we're below them, because we kind of are above them when it comes to physical things. But they kind of are above us when it comes to thinking, processing, rationalizing, and spirit-related things. They're above us because they're spirits. So they work out the spirit muscle and we work out the physical muscle. Number 8, mysterious scents manifesting. Roses, sweet-smelling fragrances to the most putrid odors imaginable, including brimstone. I had heard about roses manifesting when some angelic Catholic saint pops in or an angel shows up. It's going to smell like roses, whatever the case. So I'd heard that. I've heard that on Unsolved Mysteries. I've heard it on a couple ghost shows growing up. I thought it was odd. I definitely didn't think about it much. It didn't really occur to me that spirits can bring smells, but they most definitely can. I've only experienced a spirit bringing smell one time in one house, and it brought a putrid body odor smell. It smelled like perhaps how some people have described Bigfoot smelling. the skunk ape Bigfoot. They don't call it the skunk ape for nothing, because it smells kind of like a skunk. It smells really bad. And that further tells me that Bigfoot is a spirit, most specifically a negative spirit. And that's how you can tell, supposedly, whether a spirit's positive or negative, if it brings a scent to you, which is rare. It's so rare that I've had many spirit encounters in my life, many. Only once did I smell the spirit. It smelled like putrid body odor, but it was a foreign putrid body odor that I've never smelled before. Because I have to grasp at straws on trying to describe what type of putrid body odor this was. It smelled like a creature that lived in a cave for 100 years. And that cave had a lot of moss growing on the walls, a lot of damp water trickling down the walls. And it's in this moist, damp cave with a lot of green moss. And it just never took a bath for 100 years. And then it crawls out of this cave. And it has a putrid, disgusting body odor. But there's hints and notes of moss and a cave and moisture. Like maybe if you went behind a waterfall and there was a bunch of moss behind that waterfall. It smelled kind of gross, but there's some positive earthy tones to it. So as putrid and disgusting as it was, there was some natural earthy aspects to it, but it was mostly disgusting. And I could see someone calling it a skunk ape if they smelled it for the first time. It definitely didn't smell like a skunk. It smelled more like human body odor, but mixed with moss, moisture. So I thought someone just got out of the shower because this smell almost had moisture connected to it. Now, how do I know it was a spirit? Because A, when I first smelled it, it was in a hallway of a house that I was renting. And I thought someone just got out of the shower and maybe they just went to the bathroom. Something horrific happened, like a combination of a shower and a bathroom scenario. I don't know what it was, all right? So I looked around the whole house. No one was in the entire house. I even looked in the shower, okay? No one was in the shower. I looked in the other shower. No one was in the other shower. Both showers were bone dry. No one took a shower. No one was in any of the bathrooms. No one was anywhere in the house. This is probably on my day off. I probably woke up at noon, okay? 12 o'clock. I smelled this horrific thing. It almost followed me as I went down the hallway into the garage to get a beverage out of the garage refrigerator. And it definitely permeated in the hallway. It didn't seem to leave the hallway, but it almost seemed to follow me down the hallway, this smell. Some fluke of a thing, not sure what it was. I smelled it again about 1 week later, and I was like, that's weird. Must be my roommate. I don't know. And then about a couple days later, my landlord asked me what I'm doing in my room and what's this disgusting smell. They assumed it was coming from me. It was not. Okay? It was a foreign smell I'd never smelled in my life. They smelled it. They thought it was me because it was a mystery to them. In this house, I experienced a couple poltergeist things. My pencils were moved in my pencil holder. My forehead was flicked by a spirit. It felt like a small rock was thrown at my forehead. I drifted out of my body a little bit into the astral plane, and I heard the astral plane in this room, and I heard someone playing the guitar. It sounded like Jimi Hendrix playing a guitar. That was the room that I heard the cacophony of 1,000 pots and pans and 1,000 conversations. That's what it sounded like. It was bizarre. More than a few supernatural things happened at that room, in that house, and in that room, but out of that room, in the hallway. And I know of a surety, it was a spirit bringing that disgusting odor. So I wouldn't mind smelling roses from an angel, I'll tell you that. But I haven't yet smelled such a thing. Supposedly demons bring the smell of brimstone. I have heard that on a number of occasions. And brimstone smells like rotten eggs, just to let you know. So if you ever smell rotten eggs where there aren't supposed to be rotten eggs, I guess you could be smelling sulfur or something to that effect, but you also could be smelling a demon, supposedly. Number 9, light anomalies. Orbs of light of all sizes, mysterious shapes of all kinds, usually transparent, sometimes flying in or out of an object or person. I've seen light anomalies so small that it looks like an insect, but it's not. It's flying in and out of one of my spirit meters, one of my spirit boxes. Not a coincidence. Like that book, Mystery and Magic in Tibet, they kind of elaborate a little bit on how spirits can change their height and size, and how spirit size doesn't matter on the spirit plane of existence. You could be this tall. You could be Ant-Man shrunken down, and it doesn't matter. You're still the same intelligence level. You're still of the same this and that. If you're not physical, you're not bound by physical dimensions, which makes sense. But a lot of people assume it's going to be a full-blown walking body with legs and arms. And sometimes it is. After watching Celebrity Ghost Encounters, I heard many stories of, I saw a torso of a guy. I saw the legs of a person. I saw a head, a floating head. So sometimes it is just a part of the body manifested. I personally think that's because it's hard for a spirit to manifest the full body. I've seen missed manifestations on camera that I filmed myself. And perhaps if I was there a couple more hours, or perhaps if the spirit was more inclined, it would have manifested a full-blown foot, an arm, a leg, a head, who knows. But it's pretty rare to see such a thing. 10, visions, flashes of images or video in the mind from the spirit. I've experienced this. Now, I was skeptical of this existing, of this being a thing. When you watch Ghost Adventures and Zach Bagans says, "I see something," yes, it seems like a big ruse, but I don't believe it is. Perhaps it's his imagination sometimes, but he's connected enough to know that sometimes it is a flash of a video, of an image, of a picture from the spirit to him. That is a way some spirits do communicate. I was at the Comedy Store for 3 nights in a row, and the way that that spirit communicated with me was flashes of images in my head, of it standing behind me, of it being in pitch black with a white hand, and it putting its white hand on my right shoulder. Those are a few different images. It flashed into my head a few seconds before I was called on stage to be made a laughingstock, to be called a buffoon, to be called a joke. So at least I did have a punchline for them. The punchline was, hey, just a few seconds ago, I made contact with the spirit, the ghost that haunts this place. Just showed me its existence. And the whole room was silent and nobody was laughing. It wasn't funny. There were some nervous, there were some nervous faces because I was telling the truth. 11, dreams. A spirit-induced dream will be a vivid, strong message. Even if that message isn't obvious, symbolism is often used. Man, I had a weird dream last night. Was it a spirit-induced dream? I don't know. See, we don't always know if it's a spirit-induced dream. I would say one of the strongest spirit-induced dreams that come to mind, I was in like a Tibetan temple made of solid wood. Every room, every piece of the structure was solid wood. I look out the window and there was snow, peaks. So we are on top of a snowy mountain. Kind of reminds me of the spirit place that some supposed out-of-body travelers go to. So maybe I went to an actual place on the spirit plane. I don't know. But it was definitely a spirit dream because I saw a dead relative, and that dead relative pointed to the corner of the room. I looked at the corner of the room and I saw different colored powder, neon brightly colored powder and dust of the entire rainbow. We're talking had purple, blue, yellow, orange, green, turquoise, every color you can think of. But the colors were broken up about, I don't know, maybe there was like 2 feet of one color, then 2 feet of another color, then 2 feet of another color. And it was about 2 inches wide on the perimeter of every single room in this entire Tibetan Buddhist temple. And the only reason I know it's a Tibetan Buddhist temple is because I followed this perimeter of colored dust down the hallway, passing the window. There was a beam in that room, a solid wooden beam. And I walked down the hallway and I saw immediately a monk dressed in a yellow robe. And he was totally bald, just a classic Tibetan Buddhist monk. And he was hopping, jumping up and down, hopping in the corner of the room over here. Very odd. He was pointed toward the corner of the room. So he wasn't facing me, he was facing the corner of the room, hopping up and down. And then I turned to the left, and I believe I saw another monk dressed similarly, hopping up and down as well. And this guy wasn't in the corner of the room. And I do believe I did try to ask, what are you doing? What was this hopping? What's going on? And I think they might have communicated with me telepathically. And I think they said they are casting out demons or something to that effect. It was very bizarre. So it gave me the impression that this colored dust was to see footsteps or footprints of negative entities. If a footstep of a negative entity could be seen on the dust, the monks would know that the place had been infiltrated by a negative spirit, is what I gathered. Because I've heard, obviously, we've heard of the Abermelin, and supposedly part of the Abermelin includes circling not salt, but dust powder to see if there are footsteps of negative spirits breaking the perimeter. And that's where I assume that's what it came from, but I'm not sure. So I turn to the left, all the way to the left, and I see a tiny bookshelf, very small. There are maybe 10 books on the bookshelf. This bookshelf was about yay big on the floor, and the other monk hopping, I think he turned to it, and he might have pointed at it, or maybe he just looked at it, and the dream guided me to it, okay? So dreams aren't always going to be you left your body and went to some place, but it feels like I almost did. So I grabbed a book on the bookshelf. I think I just grabbed a random book. And the monk really wanted me to see what this book was. And the book said Corners of Rooms. It looked like it was black leather, looked like a very antique book. It had a logo on the cover. I opened it up, and the front cover broke off and separated from the book. So this book was so old, it broke when I touched it. And the pages were still connected, but I felt like if I touched it much more, I would just destroy this super antique book. So I am writing Corners of Rooms. It's my second book. My first book is a ghost hunting book. I have firsthand a good amount of information that you've never heard before, never seen before. I'm just talking about this dream I had, which I know for a fact was a spirit-induced dream. So spirit-induced dreams exist. 12. Seeing and hearing. When spirits manifest, it is common for no one to see or hear them. Obviously, they're invisible, which is why not many people believe in them, or not many people are super sure of them being around on a regular basis. When a rare someone does see them, they often cannot hear them, or vice versa. This is a well-documented phenomenon concerning spirit manifestations. This is one way I can tell whether a story is super authentic or not, if I'm doubtful of some of it. For example, Roger Morneau talked about beware of angels, and then he talks about this family who communicated with angels. It's one of those stories I read a couple chapter previews for free online, and I was very iffy on it being real. I read the entire book, and despite what happened and despite where this family is today, even many, if not all of them, denying it ever happened because they want to put it behind them so much, they want to deny it ever happened. It's kind of like the boy who was the actual true life inspiration for the movie The Exorcist. There's an actual boy that was possessed by a demon from playing with a Ouija board by himself. They turned it into a movie and they changed it to a girl. And they obviously changed many things like spitting up green stuff and heads turning and beds levitating. Maybe beds did levitate. I mean, some exorcists do state that levitating beds is a genuine phenomenon. Yikes. I would not want to experience that. I've not experienced that. That is the case of an extreme possession if a bed levitates, okay? Or extreme oppression. Let's just put it this way, it's on the end, teetering on the end of the end on oppression, possession, if your bed's levitating, okay? The guy who The Exorcist is based on went on to work for NASA, okay? He put his exorcist behind him so far, he didn't even acknowledge it ever happened. That's not me. No, I don't think so. Because it was too traumatizing, too frightening, too scary. So the boy in this Beware of Angels story is still alive today, okay? He's alive. And he doesn't acknowledge it ever happened. He wants it behind him. But reading this story, I think Roger was onto something. I think Roger identified something that let him know it was an authentic story. This family did Bible studies to the point where they wanted to communicate with angels. They were obsessed with the passages in the Bible which said, God's people talk to the angels, or whatever. There are passages where a select few of prophets and apostles and whatever the case may be do have brief encounters. If you're a shepherd and the birth of the Lord is down the road and the angel says, hey, by the way, the Savior of the universe is being born down the road. I'm an angel. Peace out. And so very few humans have ever firsthand seen angels, okay? It's an out there concept because we haven't had contact with angels. Angels exist. Angels are real. They're positive and they follow the rules precisely and perfectly. And one of those rules is don't show themselves to humans unless they're told to show themselves to humans. So angels follow the rules so much that they need approval before they can show themselves to you. And even then, they probably disguise themselves if they're helping you out and never disclose that they're angels, and they go about their way. In this story, Beware of Angels, a couple family members could see an angel after these Bible studies of them obsessing. They just broke away, started their own study group to the point where there's a small group doing this, and they would just open communication with angels. Angels, 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 angels. Kind of reminds me of these UFO groups that are popping up. Dr. Greer has, let's communicate with UFOs, aliens, UFOs, aliens, UFOs, aliens. If you start a prayer session to UFOs and aliens, they're going to pop up, they're going to show up, all right? They're spirits. They're not UFOs and they're not aliens. This group, they said some of them could hear the angel, some of them could see the angel, and a rare one of them could both see and hear the angel. And they confirmed with each other, what does he look like? Oh, he looks like this. That's how two of them knew they were looking at an actual entity, and it wasn't an imaginative thing that they were just making up. Some of them claimed they saw Jesus. What does he look like? Oh, he looks like this, he looks like that. It must be Jesus. So that's a huge sign that it's demonic. Jesus doesn't just show up to Bible study groups, all right? First of all, these angelic and Jesus appearances, ended in extreme destruction and corruption. It led to a chain of events of extreme negativity. I almost don't want to do a full book review on it, just for the kid who survived it. Just for the kid who could see and hear angels. And he's like, that never happened. I don't want anything to do with that. But that's a telltale sign that it actually happened. The very famous Fatima vision from the 3 kids that supposedly saw the Mother Mary, famous visions resulting in secrets of Fatima that only the Pope knows about, only the Pope's closest confidants know about. These kids, some of them could see Mary, some of them could hear her, some of them could see and hear her. I think one of them couldn't see or hear her. They just stuck around because they're like, yeah, I can see and hear her too. So I think it's possible out of the 3 kids, one of them couldn't see or hear her at all. They're just kind of best friends with the other 2. And one of them could see, one of them could hear, whatever the case. But together, they knew the secrets. They all shared it with each other. But that's authentic phenomena. I personally believe that vision was negative. I believe it was a deception of a negative spirit. Negative spirits can appear as Jesus, as angels, as Mother Mary. Negative spirits can appear as extraterrestrials, short and tall, green skin, blue skin, gray skin. They can appear as angels of light, with wings, no wings, whatever the case, up, down, left, and right. They could be demons with horns. They could be beautiful women. They could be anything, okay? Dr. John Dee's case, it could be a maiden asking for help. Oh, please help me. Oh, I'm just a poor maiden. They can appear as anything, all right? Some being able to see them and not hear them is very phenomenal, legitimate, authentic activity. Some guy on YouTube said he did a magic spell and the spirit appeared. And he was like, what the freak? And I think the spirit was talking and the guy was like, I can't hear it. Well, I can't hear anything. I see you talking, but I'm not hearing anything. Because the dude wasn't fully in tune. Maybe he didn't have the gift of hearing it. Maybe he didn't have the lights dim enough and the candles, whatever the case, he did a legitimate magic spell and a spirit showed up. So he's lucky he saw anything. Ghost investigating isn't about doing magic spells and summoning spirits. Ghost investigating is about going to a place, confirming there's a spirit there, and saying, hey, skeptics, you don't believe spirits exist? Let's go to this location. I already know there's a spirit there. Spirits don't die, okay? So 100 years after I'm dead, that spirit might still be there, and you can go to that exact spot. So it's kind of, if anything, a way to prove to science, to the scientific-minded, to the scientific community, rejected as it may be, it's still a way. Those who are dedicated want to know the truth beyond the BS, beyond what the search engines and the AI connected to those search engines will tell you, that there's no proof of spirit phenomenon. It's all folklore and hearsay, urban legends and urban myths. But the fact is, you can go to the crossroads right there and you can turn on a device, the exact device I have. You can buy it. I'm not selling it. Buy the exact device I have. Turn on that exact device I have at that exact crossroads at that exact time. 24 hours a day, actually. Go there, but maybe at nighttime it's more likely to happen. So those who knock, it shall be opened unto them. And those who don't knock, it won't be opened unto them. So beware on what door you knock. 13, sleep paralysis. Spirits can induce sleep paralysis. Not being able to move can be explained. If you're in a sleep-like state, like REM, rapid eye movement state, you can definitely have your body paralyzed to protect you from sleepwalking. And some people have that turned off and they sleepwalk and they run amok. Spirits can induce sleep paralysis while you are wide awake, usually after the lights are turned off. I personally turned off the lights one time in 2011 in that poltergeist haunted room. And before my head hit the pillow, seconds I would say 3 to 4 seconds after I turned the light switch off. 2 entities jumped on me and attacked me. Before my head hit the pillow, I was wide awake. 2 to 3 seconds after turning off the light, maybe 4 to 5 seconds. I'll give it 5 seconds, all right? My head was not on the pillow yet. 2 entities jumped on me, grabbed my throat, and I cast them out in the name of God, in the name of Jesus. Eventually, they let go. Eventually, their grip was off, and they jumped off of me. It was a pretty frightful experience, pretty scary. It happened, and I can see it being confused for sleep paralysis. So it was a false sleep paralysis because it was spirits jumping on my freaking body. But I could see if someone didn't believe spirits existed, they could have confused it with sleep paralysis if they're an idiot. It was not sleep paralysis. I do believe I experienced real, actual scientific sleep paralysis, and a spirit was still there. It was interesting. This was back in 2002. In the year 2002, I was in an apartment trying to sleep at night. I was having some unsettling dream. I don't remember what was in the dream. All I remember is it made me wake up. It was that unsettling. So I wake up from this demonic dream, and I look around, and there's a freaking gray alien standing at the foot of my bed. Okay, this is a true story. The alien, I estimate, was about 4 feet tall. It didn't look exactly like the ones you see on TV because it had eyelids on the top and on the bottom of its eyes. It kind of closed its eyes like a lizard, a gecko, or there are certain lizards with an eyelid on the top and the bottom. And these eyelids were half closed. So he was kind of squinting at me. There's a gray alien about 4 feet tall, taller than the 3-foot super short ones, but still pretty short. And he was leaning to the side, kind of squinting at me. And it freaked me out more than the dream that woke me up. Okay? So I tried to move, and I couldn't. I was frozen. My entire body was frozen. I could only move my eyeballs until I realized I was still in a dream. When I realized I was still in a dream, I woke up, and my room looked exactly identical to the dream, except there was no gray alien there. So the gray alien was in the dream the whole time. But I do believe that's an example of a demon using sleep paralysis to scare me. And the dream within a dream thing is pretty unique. I'm not the first person to experience it, but it was definitely a demonic dream within a dream scenario. And it is the first time I ever experienced a gray alien or an alien in general on that level. So I do believe gray aliens are negative entities, negative spirits. That's my personal firsthand witness to a gray alien in my dream. I do believe it was a spirit there because even after I actually woke up for real, there was a weird negative presence I could feel still in the room. So it was a little bit unsettling, and it did take me a while to get to sleep, but eventually everything was fine. 14, partial body manifestations. I already talked about this, partially a foot, partially a head. It's an interesting phenomenon. It's a little key and a token of a true, genuine spirit eyewitness. I saw just the head. I saw just the arm and the hand. I saw just the foot and the torso, and it was kind of missing in between. These are different signs of someone actually seeing a real spirit. So if you pay attention, and if you've experienced any of these or heard any of these from someone telling you a ghost story that they claim they saw, some of these are not well known. And so they're just little keys to let you know if a story's more likely to be true than not. 15, full body manifestations. Very rare, very rare. I know of people that have seen full body manifestations and they were fully solid and they thought it was a regular person until they turned the corner and they vanished. So whenever there's a full body manifestation, they seem to vanish like that. Very interesting. I think those people are just in tune. They just have the gift. They have the ability to see dead people, if you will, to see spirits. And it's pretty rare. I don't have that ability, and I'm glad I don't. I think it would freak me out. 16. Objects moved behind one's back. The activity is never actually witnessed. This is the most common form of poltergeist activity. Someone goes on a trip, whatever the case. They go to the movies. They go to the grocery store. They come back home. Like, oh, my locket. My locket isn't there. It's not on my dresser. Where is my locket? And then 6 months later, their locket's on top of their bookcase. Oh my gosh, a spirit moved it. Now, that's an over-the-top, exaggerated example of someone claiming poltergeist activity in their house when it's probably not. All right? But it could be on some extremely lazy level. But Occam's razor tells you someone just moved it or they misplaced it, okay? Don't assume a spirit moved something if you lost track of it, all right? But that's the most common form of poltergeist activity, behind your back. Alice Cooper said, he was at a haunted house. He put out his clothes on his bed out of his case. He went in the bathroom, went out of the bathroom, and all of his clothes were back in his case. And he did it again, and it happened again. But that was always behind his back. But that's more immediate, and the other people in that house said they experienced something similar. So that's more genuine, that's more authentic. That is still behind the back, but that's probably a spirit, because Alice Cooper went on to say on the Celebrity Ghost Stories that it sounded like furniture was dragged in the basement. I've heard that furniture dragged sound on at least half a dozen ghost stories. I've never personally experienced the furniture being dragged, but that's one of the sound effects spirits tend to manifest. And that's something not even on this list, is spirits do have the ability to repeat sounds, manifest sounds, whether it's a footstep, furniture being dragged, walking in dry grass, playing music. They almost have a recording and playing back of any sound in existence at their disposal. They almost have that ability. I believe they do have that ability. They don't always use it. They sometimes use it. Even saying your name from the voice of someone you recognize and you think it's them and they're not there, that's one of the signs. 17 is poltergeist activity in full view. The activity is actually witnessed by the eyeballs of the person, and the objects are moved by an unseen force. So that's the rarer form of poltergeist activity. Like, I didn't leave the kitchen and hear something fall. I actually saw something pushed by an unseen force, an invisible force. As I say that, I hear some weird sound over here. I actually saw something pushed by an unseen force, an invisible force. Anyway. Unseen force, invisible force. Actually seeing it in front of your face. I personally, at the poltergeist haunted room that I lived in 2011, the biggest thing the poltergeists moved was a stack of 3 boxes. And that stack of 3 boxes, they knocked it down pretty vigorously after I commanded them to leave. We're talking 2 seconds after I commanded them to leave. They violently, begrudgingly, in a temper tantrum reaction, they kicked this stack of 3 boxes down. These were big U-Haul boxes. In the U-Haul box world, they're either medium or large size. And they were all the same size, stacked with varying stuff inside of them. And only 2 of the boxes knocked over. The 3rd box, I don't believe moved, just being on the bottom. But the top 2 big boxes knocked completely over, and this happened 6 feet away from me, 5 feet away from me. Something to that effect. I didn't touch them in any way, shape, or form, yet I saw them from that close range, knocked and kicked down by an unseen force. It was pretty startling, but at least I knew they left. I think they were saving it for when I commanded them to leave. It's pretty freaky. But at the same time, I knew they were leaving for some reason. I knew there was like an angelic presence forcing them to leave. That it wasn't me or my ability or power making them leave. I knew it was always a higher angelic force above them, making them leave. So the last sign of spirit activity, and as I've mentioned on the many tangents I've talked about in this video, 18, there's more than 18 signs. There is an unlimited number of signs. But I have 18 as levitation in full view. An object is levitated by a poltergeist spirit in full view of a witness. This is the rarest form of poltergeist activity. Many people are under the false concept and false illusion and false urban legend, hearsay, mythology of poltergeists by believing that poltergeists are a certain thing and they only follow teenage girls with a lot of angst and a lot of repressive feelings and thoughts. That's not the case in any way, shape, or form, okay? Just because such has happened in the past, it doesn't mean that that has anything to do with poltergeists. But as for me, I was in my 30s when poltergeists harassed me in the haunted room that I rented. I was in my early 30s, but my 30s nonetheless. I was just living my life, having, I wouldn't say a blast, but just doing my own thing. You know, everything was all good. These two entities were, I believe, assigned to me to harass me. Now, I did witness, not in that room, but only many, many years later, in the year 2018, with the creation of Mysterialis. MGIC is the Mysterialis Ghost Investigation crew. It all started with Mysterialis, which wasn't just a show. It wasn't just a Corners of Rooms experiment. It was the beginning of my research into evidence and the existence of spirit entities. And I investigated to an extreme degree. Other humans haven't investigated on this level without receiving similar results. So I do believe other people on this planet have investigated to this level and were given and shown similar results. I use the analogy of a magic spell, but there aren't too many analogies that really fit. It's kind of like the Abermelin ritual itself. At the end, you're rewarded with some great thing. With my investigation, it's not a great thing. It's a thing, and it's a supernatural thing and a paranormal thing. But I wasn't able to record it for your viewing pleasure. I wasn't able to record it for your entertainment. But the culminating climax and great reveal of the Corners of Rooms experiment in 2018 resulted in full-blown levitation of some objects on my desk, and I've already talked about this many, many times. It happened so long ago that I lost the exact date, but I believe it was April 10th or April 11th. And I know which one it was if I look at the calendar and realize and figure out which one it was. But these are the actual wires that levitated above my desk. These wires levitated above my desk about 3 months after my Corners of Rooms experiment. I built a holder for the many spirit meters. How many people build a holder for their meters? I spray painted and built a stand for the meter holder. The Corners of Rooms experiment number 1 video is still available. It's pretty freaky. I don't watch it, but I recommend people watch it if they want to see an authentic reaction of a die-hard, extreme, over-the-top spirit investigation, which I do not recommend anyone does in their own house. Don't spirit investigate in your own house, because you might not be able to go to sleep that night. Okay, that's just some advice I give to many out there. I saw these wires levitate about this high above my desk. Now my desk is quite a few feet tall. I think my desk is about 3 feet tall, something to that effect, okay? I don't have the exact dimensions, but I think my desk is about 3 feet tall. So the wires are actually levitating 4 feet in the air because the entity picked them up off my desk, which was already 3 feet in the air, picked them up to be 4 feet in the air, give or take. When I saw levitating wires above my desk, I was watching a show on Netflix on my laptop, totally ignoring everything in my room, just watching the show. I watched like 2 episodes in a row, was getting a little bored, needed to take a break. Took off my headphones. I could hear rustling in my room. I could hear a person shuffling, rustling in my room. It's like, what the heck? I turn and I see these wires levitating above my desk. Levitating in a way in which they were hanging in midair. And there was a bunch of air in between them, obviously. The first thought in my mind was, I couldn't register. I didn't know what was happening because I'd never seen levitation before. The first thought in my mind was, I don't remember leaving these wires in a pile like that. And my second thought was, that's not a pile. That's impossible. What's going on? My third thought was, I am witnessing levitation. This is levitation. And the second I realized it was levitation, the entity dropped almost as if invisible fingers, I couldn't see, went like this, and the wires fell back onto the desk, and some of them slipped off the desk, but none of them fully slipped off the desk. All of them were still on the desk, but some of them clanked against my metal desk. There's metal ends on every one of these things. These are actually cell phone wires advertised. They're advertised as cell phone wires. They're on sale for 99 cents each. And so I bought like 20 of them. I had like a lot of them. I still have some of them sealed and closed and unopened, which is how I know that these are the ones that were levitating above my desk because they're opened. So I have about 20 of them, and I believe about 8 of them were levitating above my desk, whereas my other ones were not even opened yet. After seeing that, I was blown away, but at the same time, I was really offended that there was an entity invading my space. And I commanded it, well, I was about to command it to leave. Because I kind of automatically go into, I command, in the name of Jesus Christ. I was about to command it to leave when it left. It left immediately. When I said, this is my castle, this is my private residence. It knew I didn't appreciate it being in my room. And it's never levitated anything ever again. So I've never witnessed anything like that ever again. I've never seen anything like that again. I've never seen anything like that before or since. Extremely rare. The fact that I actually saw it, I'm extremely surprised. Because it tops even the kicking of the boxes that I witnessed in 2011. It tops that. But these are the signs of spirit activity. Spirits exist. Spirits are real. So these are the 18 signs of spirit activity. Spirit activity signs are all over the place. Use your judgment. Use your personal insight to determine whether a spirit is in your space, is in a space you are occupying. Are you co-occupying an area with a spirit? I'm on the level where I'm never going to be a tourist at a historical area ever again. I'm a ghost investigator at a historical landmark, historical location. Even at the OK Corral, the first time I visited the OK Corral, I took 10 steps into the OK Corral, a spirit walked through my body. I'm a natural ghost investigator, okay? Some would say psychic. I'm a little wee bit, if you want to use the term psychic, a little bit. So I do believe the best spirit investigators, the best ghost hunters are a little bit psychic. But you also have to use your logic, your reason, insight, your sixth sense. You also got to use your 5 senses. The more data, the better. Until next time, I thank you for watching. This has been John Razimus with Mysteriala's Ghost Investigation. Be seeing you.